My guests today are filmmakers Daniela Schreier-Kafschi, Ines Martina, and Alex Cosine, and their powerful short film Ladybug. Now, writer-director Daniela Schreier-Kafschi and her provocative short film Ladybug has screened internationally, been nominated for a Female Focus Film Award, and landed her a Best Director prize. Previously, she produced Fall to Rise, a feature film starring Daphne Rubin Vega and Desmond Richardson, and directed the award-winning play Julie, Paul, and Jack at the Chain. She has also received numerous awards for documentary shorts, a TV series on Vice, and more. Even her previous short, The Showdown, in which a bullied boy harnesses the power of the art of war, premiered at Holly Shorts. Now, originally from Argentina, a film student at the University of Buenos Aires, Ines Martina moved to New York City in 2012 to study theater at HB Studio. And in New York, she has built her career as an actor, singer, and producer of films and branded content. She and her husband owned Third Strand Productions, a creative video agency based in Brooklyn, New York. And a month after she moved to the city, the Sandy Hook massacre happened, and she has been a supporter of gun reform ever since. Now, Alex Cosine has worked as a writer, director, and producer on a wide variety of projects, ranging from documentary television, branded content, and feature films for over 20 years. Now, as the founder of Third Strand Productions, Alex aspires to produce socially relevant stories that can help lead the hard conversations that face our society. And with Ladybug, he believes Third Strand has delivered a film that is as much compelling entertainment as it is a poignant statement about the major crisis of United States culture. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the filmmaking team of the short film Ladybug, Daniela Schreier-Kafschi, Ines Martina, and Alex Cosine to the show. And I want to welcome all three of you to talk about this very compelling film.
Thank you so much. We're very excited to be here.
Well, Daniela, I'm going to start with you. You wrote and directed Ladybug. What prompted you to write such a very powerful story about a grief-stricken and, well, angry mother whose child died by gun violence?
Yeah, I'm a filmmaker and I'm a parent. I'm a mother to two young boys. And the day that the school shooting happened in Uvalde, I just was just so totally overcome with a broken heart, but also just, really fed up and really frustrated that there's just no action here on this issue. And I really thought about what it could be like to be a parent that was in this position, because there's just too many parents that we've put in this position and we don't really want to think about them again because it's too painful and it's too hard to imagine what they've gone through. And so I kind of just really sat down at the computer the day after Uvalde and I just let this story pour out of me. And this character of Ronnie came forward as somebody complicated and compelling and confusing, but in a way that was probably not the type of mother or the type of character that you would imagine in a drama about a school shooting. And I wanted it to be that way. I wanted her to be somebody that you kind of couldn't take your eyes off of and that you wanted to go on a journey with. And I just really wanted to create something that people would actually want to focus on, because the issue itself is so depressing and so kind of harrowing that it's really hard to watch something about this. And so I kind of wanted to subvert the idea of what a movie like this could be so that audiences would surrender into it, go with it, and like ride through all the crazy ups and downs that this movie takes them on.
Yeah, it is. It's a very emotional to watch. And to you, Inez and Alex, why was it important for both of you to produce Ladybug?
Well, as you read about my bio, when I first moved to New York, a month after the Sandy Hook massacre happened, and people talked about it for the first week or two, and then nobody kept on talking about it, and I was really traumatized forever. And I always thought that if a good script came along that didn't show the killing or the massacre, but could show this horrible thing that only happens in the United States from a different point of view, that I would love to produce it and be involved with it. And, years later, Alex's friend Daniela sent us the script and we were hooked. I mean, I read it, and the second she sent it, we read it and we wanted to do it.
And what about you, Alex?
So for me, it just goes back to the script. I think I was drawn in by Daniela's ability to make the subject entertaining. It's not a subject anybody wants to talk about in a deeply serious way unless you have to. It's not a subject anybody wants to have to confront for very long emotionally. But what she did was she brought us into the grief of this very interesting character, and we're on a ride through her anger, her grief, her spirit of revenge that she has, and somehow it's so entertaining and compelling, even kind of funny in a way.
All right. So when I first moved to New York from Buenos Aires, Argentina, I was here for a month, and then the Sandy Hook massacre happened. And I was, as everyone, extremely traumatized by it. But I did notice that after a few weeks, people kind of stopped talking about it or didn't want to continue talking about it. So from then on, I thought, if I ever get a script in my hands of that shows what happens in this country and in this country only, in a way where we don't show any gory details or the killing or the suffering of the actual children, but we show it from a different point of view, that I would love to be involved. And, a few years later, Daniela sent this script to Alex, and we read it right away, and we wanted to do it. Specifically because the point of view through the mother's eyes, a year later, and she breaks a fourth wall, she talks to camera. I thought this is very unique, very interesting. People will be able to actually sit this 19 minutes and watch this movie and not suffer, and be like leaving their seat, barely able to stand. Because I don't watch those type of movies, but I like watching the type of movie that Daniela wrote, which leaves you with a message and makes you think and starts a conversation. Because after every festival, when the movie ends, people from all different backgrounds come to us and give us their point of view. And some people are crying. Some people are just like so happy that we created this, that it's a conversation and a topic. And that's what we want, right? We want people to talk about this and not take it like this is a normal in our country. It's not. So that's why I particularly loved Daniela's script right away. And I told him we have to produce this however we can.
So because this is a very tough subject to cover, how are you able to balance a little bit of the entertainment factor to prevent the film from becoming dark?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like it's all in tone. And I think all three of us sometimes are like, wow, how did we walk that tightrope of the tone? Because it's just so singular, and you lean too far into any which direction, and I think kind of the whole thing falls apart. I think the main way that it was able to come together was that I really really tried to make Ronnie a very three-dimensional person, and I wasn't afraid to make her messy, and I wasn't afraid to have her do things that were surprising or startling. And I think in making her really complicated and having her be able to share so much about her backstory and her reasons for doing kind of this crazy thing. So for people that might not have seen the film, this is a mother who, a year after her child was killed in a school shooting, decides she's not going to go to the memorial. Instead, she's going to go blow up the NRA. And it's a shocking thing to say. It's a shocking thing to have her do. But I really imagined, how does this person live? how does this person go on? And here's this way, her and other people that are kind of left with this suffering, that might feel like this is something that they could do to bring attention. And I think kind of balancing this really outlandish thing with really beautiful cinematography, a really kind of like picturesque American dream kind of looking palette, peppering in a few kind of jokes, revealing kind of funny and strange intimacies about her background, and really, again, like what Inez said, breaking the fourth wall, allowing her to reveal herself kind of in real time through memories, through jokes, through her kind of little bit of an off-color sense of humor, allows it to have this strange stew that for some reason works and makes this palatable and makes you kind of feel at times that you're watching a thriller versus watching, you know, like a really kind of overly wrought drama about something really devastating.
Yeah, and it comes across that way because as I was watching the film, this film has many sides to it. You know, there's Ronnie, the grieving and angry mother, who chooses violence to send a message because an act of violence ended her daughter's life. Then there's Teo, who is grief stricken. He is an angry father, but he wants Ronnie to carry out the deed. And he said he's fine spending his life in prison. But when I thought of that statement, I'm like, but there's no advocacy in that. You know, it's just more of both of them trying to find a way to heal, to find closure. And in a way, this was their way of doing that. But when I looked at them both, their anger is justified. Maybe not the plan, but succumbing to use violence because you experience violence, does that mean that the other side won?
You know, I think I don't want to give away the ending, but I think for all three of us, we don't believe that violence is a solution to violence. And, you know, I really think that love and empathy and understanding and spirituality and hope and, you know, seeing each other fully, those are the ways through these things. But it is also important to, I think, us to have a reckoning about what we are doing to people, the kind of intolerable suffering victims of gun violence that are left, that lose their children, that lose their spouse, that lose their parent. That's like an unfathomable pain that's then kind of magnetized by inaction that we have in this country. And so I don't espouse going out and doing anything radical. I don't, you know, if you were to see the movie, you'll see where the movie ends. But I think the point is, it's almost like, you know, the pressure that it takes to make a diamond, this immense pressure we're putting on people. And we've seen in this country, we've seen in other parts of the world, when there's no outlet for people's pain and suffering and rage, people do radical things, or people want to do radical things just to say, hey, like, this happened, pay attention, you know?
Well, you know, the thing that really surprised me, and as I watched the film, I kept thinking to myself, why hasn't anyone ever done this? That we have, I mean, if you really break it down, just in America alone, we have hundreds of parents that have gone through this.
Thousands, yeah.
Yeah, and they've probably, every single one of them, had the exact same thought. And in very rare cases have I ever seen a parent get revenge. And I mean, there was one, and it wasn't a school shooting, but a man attacked this father's daughter, and the father got even. The father was arrested, but the father got off because it was looked at as a crime of passion. And the fact that the court looked at it as like, yeah, we would have all done the exact same thing. But in this case, it would be different because this whole situation has been politicized to the point to where both sides are at a stalemate, and neither side wants to actually do anything about it. They're great at talking about it, but they have completely failed in action.
Yeah.
There has
And
been
go
very
ahead.
little action. There has been very little action. Yes, very little.
I mean, there's been some political action, but it varies from state to state, right?
Yeah.
So, where we are in Indiana, where we shot the film, gun laws are very lax. Gun control laws are very lax. Meanwhile, next door, in Illinois, they're one of the top states for good gun reform laws. The problem is that a lot of the violence that's happening in Chicago, gun violence, are with guns that are purchased right across the state line in Indiana. So, there is a political element to controlling guns at a federal level that needs to happen. Otherwise, it's really about community and policing. So, this is a very, very complicated subject. How we curb, how we stop, hopefully, school shootings and other kinds of gun violence. This film, I think, is not out to take on the subject that broadly. This film puts you in a position to really go on a ride with a mother who has lost a child to gun violence, the grief, the anger. And I think what makes the film so worthwhile in its 20 minutes is when you're finished with that, I think you feel much closer to what it is to have lived that experience. And hopefully you, as a viewer, as an individual, can do something, whether it's political or otherwise, to make a contribution to gun reform. That's what we want to do. We want to send that message that this is something we can change. We humans are amazing. We can change things. And it's got to happen on many levels. How can you contribute, viewer? How can you make sure this doesn't happen, whether it's gun control or many other things that different organizations are trying to do? Get involved. Let's not have this happen again anywhere in the United States, and especially in your community. So that's what the film is.
Well, you're right. I mean, the subject alone is so big, has so many different departments connected to it. The federal government, like you said, they want to put the burden on the state, but then every state thinks differently. So there's not going to be any conformity whatsoever. The federal government doesn't want to touch it because they're always looking for re-election every year. But I want to get back to the film and on the characters, because I found the characters extremely interesting here. And I love the fact that you had Ronnie do more. Her acting in this film is very monologue type, and speaking to the camera, connecting to the audience directly. And she, in a way, has been bottling up her grief over the last year, but she's still trying to find a place where she can put it. Because, grief is simply love looking for a place to go. And she doesn't know where to put it because her love has been taken away, and she doesn't know what to do. And so I love this emotional tug of war within Ronnie. But then you have Teo, who, here's a character that actually creates the device. He's angry, but he's not going to carry it out himself. And so there's another dilemma within Teo going on. He wants revenge. He wants closure to his grief. And no pun intended, but he doesn't want to be the one to pull the trigger.
Yeah. I think with creating his character, I think, again, like, part of it was to try to really humanize the situation, and make it a compelling movie and making it an interesting movie. Tao is, whereas Ronnie, I think, is this beautiful white suburban mother, probably from a red state, never in her life, saw any kind of like systematic challenges right? I think for her, you know, in her kind of bigger life, things might have been okay. You know, she wasn't somebody that was interested in taking on the system until, you know, this kind of tragedy befell her. And with her, I kind of wanted to show that this could happen to anybody. And you know, when you look at the Covenant Mothers, you look at these women that are putting themselves on the front lines in Tennessee. They're, you know, conservative women that are coming from a Catholic school, and now they've become highly politically motivated, and they're very brave women. Um, and again, like, not the usual suspects that are going to go out there to make a case, but because this thing could happen to anybody, I wanted to, one, like, center it around a character that was not like one of these coastal people that already had an opinion about this, right? And in fact, we kind of later reveal in a subtle way that Ronnie and her family were gun carrying NRA members. You know, this wasn't a crazy thing for them. And with Tao, I really wanted to show how it's you know, anybody, like, he's an immigrant to this country. He was following an American dream. He came here on a student visa, worked for years to get his wife over. This was the promised land for him. And what happens when that dream is shattered? You know, that's so painful to feel that you made a choice to come to a country, and that in doing that choice, your wife, the person that you love so much, that you work so hard to get over here, is taken away in this like senseless situation. And I think the kind of point of them and that motel room scene is to show that these two people in this kind of this strange, sad community that must know each other and must have relationships with each other. These two people said, here are these two things we could do. He comes from a science background and he can make this. And she's beautiful and blonde and disarming, and she can roll up through that guard entry point, show her card and get in. And that's also more her personality, you know. She's a bold person.
Yeah, and so I loved the character development for both Ronnie and Teo because it shows two sides, but they also have a commonality uh, about both of them. Now, the byline of the film, "Justice is a Mother," it creates a conundrum, doesn't it? Because justice is a whole nother subject.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, to all of you, can violence be justified if violence hurt you or took something away from you?
I mean, not for me. I come from, a family in Argentina where we're in politics. Our party would be like a center left party, like a Democratic party, and we've suffered lots of violence, lots of dictatorships. Not since I've been alive, but my parents have, and my grandparents. And no, violence never actually does anything against the violence if you actually want to stop violence for good. So we really believe that the solution for all these mass shootings and this very lax gun laws is not more violence, but it's educating people, and is talking about these things, and having open discussions, and hopefully the people that are in power finally realizing that they need to change many things for this to stop.
I think it comes down to fairness and representation. If you read the statistics on how Americans feel about guns, even I think it's 3/4 of the NRA wants stronger gun laws, right?
Yeah.
If you talk to law enforcement, they want stronger gun laws. So why don't we have stronger gun laws in this country? And it comes down to the politicians to lobbyists and to a small group of people who have taken the reins of power, like the NRA, and put their will to work in our political system in a way that's unfair to the rest of us, because the rest of us don't want the gun laws that we have. We want safer schools, safer streets, and we don't have them because a small contingent of powerful people are making that impossible. So, that's ultimately that's the reality that we have to face, is that we all.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to say something that will probably tick off half my viewership, but that's okay because truth is truth, and that's what film can create narratives, and film can create lots of things. But the hold on one second. Hold on one second. Sorry, I'll do an edit point there. Okay. A few years ago, I walked into a gun shop. I was just looking around, curious, and I got into the conversation with one of the people that worked there. And I said, I made a passing comment about fully automatic weapons being illegal. And he goes, "No, they're not." And I went, "What do you mean they're not?" And he said, "No, they're not." He goes, "There's a difference." He says, as an example, somebody comes in here and buys an AR-15 as is, which is semi-automatic, could be $3,000. He goes, if the same person wants that same gun fully automatic, it's going to cost them $13,000. And I go, why the price difference if you're only changing out the pin? He goes, price is based on to deter those from even doing it. And I'm like, then why do you even offer the service?
Yeah.
And I walked into a home once that had enough firepower that would make law enforcement nervous. Every gun hanging on the wall was fully automatic, including the Barrett 50 caliber long range sniper rifle. And he has a permit for every single one. And you know who protects him? The United States government, because he works for them. But to have those out in the open hanging on your wall with almost bragging rights, it is shocking that that was just one home. How many homes in America are just like that?
So many. There is a great essay that Paul Auster wrote. It's called Bloodshed Country. I don't know if you read it, but if you haven't, you should. It's not that long, and it talks all about the fetish. Is that the word? Fetish of people in the U.S. and from the beginning until now. Why is it that people have such a fetishism for guns and firearms in general? It's very interesting, very sad, but very eye-opening for sure. And he talks about several people like the one that you just mentioned. And here in Indiana, we know some of those people too.
Yeah, and it's, a lot of them do it as a sense of, I guess it's a sense of power in their eyes. But you can have all the power you want, but do you actually have the power, or do you actually have the confidence or the gumption to actually pull the trigger on another person? Because you can brag all you want until that time comes where if you're called upon to actually do it, maybe it is to protect your family, but a lot of people wouldn't be able to. But we did. But this is a situation that is so big, and I have to ask because, I mean, has this film caught the attention of the NRA?
Not yet.
Not yet. I don't know if it will. I think they've got bigger fish to fry. They've got things on their mind, and we're not the only film talking about gun violence. There's along the way we've encountered other short films, and there are feature films too that deal in this subject, and I think our film is unique in its tone, in the way we approach storytelling, and in the way that Daniela introduced us to this character. So I think that's unique. But there's a lot of people out there talking about this. There's books being written, and I just don't think that there's the political will yet to change things. And in this country, it remains to be determined whether that political will is out there, and if we'll ever really have really good gun laws. We seem to have them before the NRA made a pivot
in 2005.
yeah, and really, there were a lot of political things that weren't renewed, and there was an uptick in marketing of automatic weapons, like the AR-15.
There was a ban until 2005.
Yeah, on automatic
Then
weapons.
and automatic weapons. Then it expired.
Yeah.
Paul Auster talks all about it in his book.
And it was not renewed. And then there was a huge push from the gun industry, makers of AR-15 style weapons, to really market towards a lot of young men, with ads like consider your man card renewed or whatever. So it's not just political; it's also a business community and a marketing engine, to make these kinds of guns popular. Video games might have something to do with it. I'm not a category expert in that, but it may have something to do with it. So I think there are a lot of things conspired to make automatic weapons popular and widely available, and with pretty lax laws on what would be considered a weapon of war in most contexts throughout history.
No, go ahead.
And I was going to just also add, I know that we kind of all three feel the same way. Like, this movie isn't, we're not trying to villainize gun ownership or individuals that have guns. It's a very complicated issue. I'm not a gun owner. I'm not interested in owning a gun, but I'm also well aware of this very diverse and big country where that is a right that people have. And many people have guns without incident, right? There's something else happening here that isn't being addressed. And that's more what this movie is about. It's about how are people, not responsible people that have the option to pull the trigger many, 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 many times in a row in a public place on innocent people. And that's more where I wish I had a solution. I don't have the solution, but I do know we can't get closer to finding one unless we can engage with the issue and realize that it can happen to anybody. That's the really shocking thing.
Yeah, we live in a society where we are numb to the news. I mean, we are numb to gun violence. If it doesn't happen to us, we continue to live our lives and never give it any thought of those who are living with their loss.
Yeah.
But is it Hollywood partly responsible for glamorizing gun violence? I mean, the public doesn't even realize that the gun makers are the ones supplying all the guns in all of the movies, because that's product placement. When you see a particular gun, and I'll just use John Wick as an example, and you see something, you're like, oh my gosh, what is that thing? And what do you have? You have people literally going online, looking it up to try to find out, is that real? Who makes it? And can you buy it? And that is a problem. But Hollywood's not going to budge because product placement pays for part of that budget.
Could be. I don't know what the deals are in Hollywood, especially the backroom deals, but there's a lot of things conspiring, obviously, to make guns, quote unquote, sexy.
Yeah, I would agree, but also I would agree that majority of people in this country do want things to change in a big way. And there's, just like Alex said before, a very small number of people controlling this huge thing that is happening with the guns. I mean, even people that are in the army right now, there's a big campaign. There was an amazing commercial that they did about how they don't want civilians to own war weapons. The AR-15 was built and created for the Vietnam War because of the specificity of the bullet and what the bullet does. The person uses in the movie, I mean, that we hear that he has used.
Okay.
I
Okay. All
wanted
right.
to, so yeah, I wanted to know about that specific weapon. And I've learned that it was created for the Vietnam War, and the bullet is, it just does a lot of damage once it gets inside of your body because it stays there, killing all your organs. So the body kind of explodes once it gets hit by that bullet. And that's why in many of these horrible shootings that happen in schools, parents can only recognize the body of their children, from the shoes. But yeah, nobody wants to hear about that. I didn't even know about that until I started reading about it. But I thought it was important to know because that's the gun that the murderer uses, in the film as a background story.
I I got you now. I want to go back to the film because there's two instances of the ladybug in the film.
Mhm.
One crawling on the windshield as Ronnie meets Teo, and the other when the ladybug was crawling on Ronnie's hand. And I'm not going to give the ending away to this film because I want everybody to see it. Um, but the second time, I read that when I saw the film, I read the appearance of the ladybug as being the daughter Tessa telling her
Mhm.
mother, "Don't do it."
Mhm.
Exactly. That's I'm so happy that you took that away. Yeah, that ladybug is telling Ronnie don't do it, but I think for Ronnie it's saying something even greater, and what its arrival signifies for Ronnie is that the thing that she's searching for is there. Right? The thing that would allow her to have any sense of peace is knowing that in some way, somehow, her daughter exists and that relationship isn't totally severed, and that there's some spiritual connection between the two of them. And for that ladybug to be there at that moment, it's like Ronnie thought that her mission was one thing and that was going to close the loop on this story. But in fact, this kind of gift comes from her. And you kind of have to see the rest of the movie. I guess it doesn't really matter to Ronnie anymore, just like it did before, what happens to her next. But now at least she's got this sense that, yeah, her daughter Tessa is somewhere in this universe, and that's all that matters. That's all that matters, and that's all the peace she could ever want.
You know, I think the larger question here with the way the film ends, and I don't want to give it away because you have to watch it to truly understand what Ronnie is going through. She is standing in place of every parent that's experienced this in America. Every
Mhm.
parent. And the message is we should never forget these children. We should not forget their names. Um, and we need to stop being numb to this situation that happens
100%.
way too many times. It's not slowing down. Sometimes it gets absolutely worse. I mean, it doesn't matter if it was two killed in a school or 20, it's the same thing. And Ronnie is basically telling the audience, do not forget. You know,
Exactly.
say their names,
Yeah.
realize they are human beings who never get to fulfill to fulfill their dreams.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, we have some, again, I hope people can watch the movie, but we have some flashbacks, and um we have like kind of what you're alluding to at the end, where she does, use her voice to say her child's name. And, I was at, Black Lives Matter protests, and I was at the Women's March in Washington. And it's so powerful to say the name of somebody that was killed and unjustly killed. And that was murdered, and that people are not talking about or thinking about or remembering that they are real, and they were loved, and they are loved, and they had a life ahead of them. And I just remember that feeling like going through my body when you would hear people say, Trayvon Martin, and then like calling out all these names in a row, that like electricity that runs through you when you're saying this person's name and knowing that they're real and that we have to remember them. And I thought, I didn't do it purposely to harken back to that movement, but I just thought that would come out of her. I just thought, instead of this rage and wanting to punish them, it's just more like that desperation of like, this is that child that was killed, and you guys are responsible. You guys are just coming and going from lunch and, hanging out and sitting on the bench. This is my daughter, Tessa. She was real. She's gone. That's her name.
Yeah,
Think
and
about her name before you go to bed.
yeah, the scene is so powerful. And people need to realize that it's not just happening in a metropolitan city. It's happening in small towns. I mean, I thought one of the most shocking is, and this was a few years ago. I don't know if it's probably been 10 years now, when the little Amish schoolhouse was hit. Who would have ever thought? An Amish schoolhouse? Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
But
look, I mean, it's an American issue, and it's an issue that I think all three of us wanted to make a movie about because we wanted to make art about it. It's really hard to look at in a news article. It's really hard to look at, in a social media post, right? It's devastating, but art has the power to take you out of it and bring you into something very personal, where you surrender. And again, like, we wanted to make these characters accessible to everybody. We wanted to make Ronnie an accessible character to blue state, purple state, red state people. We don't feel that this is a political issue. We feel that this is a human issue. We feel like it's something worthwhile as artists to create a piece of catharsis, to get people feeling, crying, yelling, getting worked up again, and just really wanting to connect with it.
well, what have been the audience's reactions to Ladybug?
Very positive. Last time we were in Cleveland 2 weeks ago with Daniela, we had a lot of people approaching us, and this woman was just, sobbing. Some other people were, and thanking us for making the movie. This other couple, from the Midwest, were just very touched and asking us, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do today? Like, how can we start? And, we told them, you can talk about this with your family members and your friends. You can go to marches. There's so many of them. Moms Demand Action, every town. I know of Sandy Hook Promise, but I haven't really dived into it. I do know more about Moms Demand Action and Every Town. But there's so many organizations that are working really hard to make changes, and they have made some changes, like at least of the age to purchase firearms and stuff. They were able to up that age in some states. But there's some people out there, a lot of mothers out there, like Daniela said before, really, really trying to make a change, getting into the politics of it all, and even trying to run for things.
Yeah.
So
It's mobilized a lot of people. I think Inez and I come to it as mothers. We come to it as creative people. And yeah, more than anything, I think we wanted to just make a piece of art that could inspire people to connect with something that a lot of times people want to turn away from.
Well,
And
the way you created this film causes the audience to pay attention from the very beginning to the very end, because you have Ronnie speaking directly to the audience. So you're wanting to listen to what she has to say, but you're also intrigued as to what is she going to do?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
because the film is not doesn't have the appearance or the feeling of being dark and dramatic because of the way that you filmed it, it causes the audience to be completely immersed in the story. How did you come to cast this film? Because I recognize Teo right off because I've seen him before. Because I know that he starred in, he was in Rabbit Hole with Kiefer Sutherland.
I don't think that's Jimmy. I think he does look like that person. Maybe I don't really know. I haven't seen that movie, but this actor who we found through a agency that we usually use in Indiana called Helen Wells. His name is Jimmy Chung, and he's only done independent film. And he sent us a self tape that we requested, and he was the first one we saw. And we were floored by his performance. I called Daniela right away, and I'm like, I don't even think we need to look at anyone else. And she agreed. So yeah, he was the first tape we saw, and we cast him right away. He's like, I think every time that people watch our film, they're like, "Who's that actor? He has that one scene and just kills it in that one scene."
he's amazing in it, and
Did
yeah,
you?
it's a very intense scene for him. And I think the day that we shot it was really intense. And you're on a set. There's a lot of pressure. Somebody shows up as a day player, and they have to step into something really formidable, and he really went there. I think he and Emily were excellent scene partners together, and they had a real electricity between one another. I think they both really surrendered into the moment. You could see it in their performance how intense and real and raw and scary it was for them. He was amazing. I think both of them, the reason why we chose both of those actors is because they performed it in a way that no one else did, right? Like they understood the tone, they understood the nuance, they understood, I guess, a little bit playing against type that you can't really describe, but that comes through. He has a real vulnerability to his performance and a softness and pain. And I think Ronnie, again, is just such a roller coaster of things. You know, Initially we had some other actresses slated to be in the film. We were kind of going into production right around the time of the strike. And I had met some wonderful people, two of which, for different reasons, were on, and they were offer only. They were kind of more household names, and they were wonderful actors, and we got along when we met, and it was a pleasure, and it was very exciting to have them on board. The strike threw some things in flux, and we were able to get a waiver to go through, but the actress that we initially had on board, her management didn't want to sign anything at that point, just in case. They gave us a verbal commitment, which kind of, we knew we had to go. We had the money, we had everything else lined up. Kind of the pressure was on for us, and I guess I say this, I mean it with total love. I don't know. I kind of felt like I didn't have the courage to only get tape submissions. I really felt like the allure of bringing on somebody with a bigger name, and that was gonna do something really important for the movie, and maybe it would have. But because of this situation, we ended up working with our casting director to get some tapes, and we got wonderful tapes, and they were curated by two wonderful casting directors that we have. And we also got a bunch of offer onlys from amazing working actresses that I know and I revere. I before this process started, I kind of was like, okay, universe, if there's some reason why I'm supposed to look at tape and I didn't have the courage to do before, then if I see the right person, doesn't matter who says they'll do it, I'm taking that person that submitted that tape. And we got a lot of tape, and they made me a little nervous because I was like, gee whiz, I thought I wrote this script that anybody could perform. And I was like, this is a tough character. I don't know who's going to do this right. And I was in bed watching tape with my husband. We were kind of looking at it on my laptop, and all of a sudden Emily Schaefer appeared. And, you know, it was kind of like Ronnie, you know, emerging from the seashell fully formed, just 100% Ronnie, completely understood the character, even in a sense, you know, blocked her submission in a way that, you know, in these one-ers that we did, 2 different one-ers that we ended up, that's how I kind of conceived of shooting the movie anyway. And we were blown away. I was a little nervous, you know, to talk to Alex and Ines. We're really good friends and we get along really well, but they're the producers and they might have had different ideas about what the movie needed. And I kind of remember just texting them. Can I say curses on here or should I not? I'll just say F word. I said, what about Emily F word Schaefer? And they were just like, yeah, that's her.
We were in Canada on vacation. We drove to Prince Edward Island. We had no service almost. We were in this teeny little Airbnb we rented. So Alex was in the kitchen trying to download some of the self-tapes, and I was in like the little bathroom seeing which one had better Wi-Fi. And we both watched Emily Schaefer's audition at the same time, I guess. And we both came out of our little areas and we were like, did you see this blonde Emily Schaefer actor self-tape? And we were blown away. And right away, Daniela texted us, or like maybe the next day. And we were, yes, I think we should say no to the famous actor that wasn't signing something with us, was just a verbal commitment, like Daniela said, and just sign this actress, Emily Schaefer. And I think it was for the best. We were a little nervous, not Alex. I was a little nervous that, you know, we have this name and now we have this other name. But Alex was like, listen, what if the name actor shows up to set and does nothing like this woman just did for us? And that totally, you know, he got me with that one. And I was like, no, you're right. So we're very happy we got Emily Schaefer, and our casting director sent us great 34 amazing tapes. But out of those, she was, you know, in a different level.
Well, I can see why this would be a tough role for any of them because of the fact when Emily does the part as Ronnie, she has no one to bounce off of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's extremely difficult. It's like doing a self-tape for 20 minutes
Mm-hmm.
and you've got to bring your A game. The only other person she's playing off of is Teo. That's the only other one. And so she's coming across with almost a monologue type situation, but she pulls it off so naturally that it speaks a lot about her talent.
She's incredibly talented. She, I think, really invests a lot of her heart and soul to understanding characters, understanding this particular woman. And, you know, I think too, if you know Emily, she's nothing like Ronnie, but she brought some of herself, like any actress does, any actor does. There's elements of her personality that I see how she's able to use some of that in her performance. But yeah, I think she is a tightrope walker herself. She is able to weave in and out of the tone, and she, I think, brought this charm and dark humor that I don't know if other people either could know that right kind of setting to go to, or that it was just like this perfect mix of everything that she naturally is and understanding that playfulness that was there and not being afraid to do it. I think a lot of people might have been afraid, thinking that it was like wrong-headed, but it was so right-headed. It was so much like loving and believing in this woman as a real person.
Yeah, but you know, now it starts to make sense because she's bringing in that dark humor, that a person in that situation would probably do because they're trying to lessen the stress of their thought of this is probably going to be my last day on earth. And the coping mechanism for that particular person is humor. So I can
Gallows
understand why that
humor,
works.
right? Yeah. It's called gallows humor for a reason. And I think too, in this world, there's a lot of heartache. And I think the best way, when possible, to look at really devastating things is to allow a little bit of light to come through and to find a way to laugh. And I think that also reminds of our humanity and reminds us that we deserve happiness, and we have to laugh at these things to be able to have the strength to go forward and keep fighting and be strong.
Oh, absolutely. Now, for both of you, what do you hope this film will accomplish?
I hope that people come out of the theater moved and hopeful for change. And I hope that the movie makes them initiate conversations that maybe they thought they would never initiate with friends, family members, coworkers, a stranger sitting next to them, which is, when I get in a car, like a car share, I talk to any driver, and I end up talking about this a lot. I'm curious, and I don't let them know my point of view. I just want to know their point of view, and I never tell them my point of view. I'm very curious how everybody feels, but I have yet to encounter somebody that says like, oh no, yes, let's continue with this, let's let
Yeah.
this keep happening. And I have talked to probably hundreds of people about this. I have a huge family in Argentina. I just came back. They all watched the movie many times. They gave me this amazing feedback, but it started so many conversations. That's what I'm hoping this film to do, for people to leave and start Googling things, and maybe go to the next march that Moms Demand Action is hosting, or Everytown. B, that they tell their friends, I just watched this film, it's about this and this and this. Like, how crazy that we live in a country that this still happens. And then boom, and see everything else. It's just initiating a conversation, and let people know what you're thinking, instead of making it such a normalcy to our lives. This should not be normal. It is not normal, and we should never allow it to become a new normal.
Yeah, amen to that. And how about you, Daniela?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with everything that Ines said. I guess when you're talking, what I would add, ditto everything. And then I would kind of add, I guess, being a mother, being a woman in this country at this moment in time, just mothers have political capital, mothers have power, mothers have so much tenacity and love and determination. And I think that there's not a lot of moms in this country that are comfortable right now. And if we realized what we could accomplish if we banded together and really made this our issue, I think it would be a sea change. There's a lot of people whose hearts and souls leave their house every day and go into a school building, and we can do it. We can work together to make something change.
Yeah, amen to that. And ladies and gentlemen, in the 18 months it took to complete the film Ladybug, approximately 3,376 children and teens were killed by firearms. Guns are the leading cause of death of children in the United States. The powerful and compelling short film Ladybug is about the anniversary of Ronnie's daughter's murder, and she is commemorating the day with vengeful act aimed at the NRA headquarters. From her suburban Indiana home in Fairfax to Fairfax, Virginia, she brings us along her quest for vengeance. But will this be Ronnie's last day on Earth, or the dawn of a surprising new chapter in her life? Now, legislation from the local, state, and federal level is not moving the needle, or should I say, not taking the bullet out of the chamber to reduce gun deaths. Now, the people who live in the United States have more guns than its own military. And I've been in gun shops who have converted or built custom fully automatic weapons. And the public has no right to own a fully automatic weapon. Why does the public have access to a long-range sniper rifle? The same ones the military snipers use to take out a target from a mile away. We can thank Hollywood for glamorizing gun violence, where guns are used as product placement. And nobody's going to give John Wick a water gun or a Nerf gun to fight off the bad guys. It's a complete catch-22. Using violence never stops violence. And in the short film Ladybug, they said it right. Justice is a mother. So I want to thank both of you as well as Alex for sharing your very powerful, very compelling film with me today. And much success to all of you in your mission to keep this topic in front of the public eye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Word. We loved it. We appreciate it.
You're very, very welcome to both of you, and have much success today with all of your filmmaking duties as well. And I want to thank all of you, ladies and gentlemen. And look, when you get the chance to see Ladybug, you need to watch it. You need to have that conversation with your family and friends, and maybe even strangers, and to keep this in the forefront, because we truly need some type of change in gun reform in this country. This is a very serious issue, but they have brought a very powerful film, Ladybug, that I want you to watch and to remember and keep that conversation going. And if you have to, when this film becomes available to all of us, hopefully we'll be able to share it with all of the congressmen and women in Washington. So I want to thank all of you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching and listening. Be sure to visit bondoncinema.com, subscribe to our YouTube channel as well as our many audio channels, and catch our special interviews on my Prime show by the same name. So as for me, you're either going to see me at the movies or from the red carpet.